Hello, good evening, and welcome to another Tea Room show.
And today we have a very special guest for you. It's RJ Broer from Fratello Watches, the creator of Speedy Tuesday, the founder of Fratello Watches, and the second time he's actually appearing on our show. So without further ado, let's bring in RJ. Hi, RJ. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Good. I have to pinch myself that we get to interview you twice in 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
extremely lucky. You make me feel special.
No, it's the pleasure is all ours. We do feel special actually having you on.
Yeah, absolute privilege. And I think to get things started, it would be awesome to do a quick what's on the wrist. So with you being the guest of honor, RJ, could you please show us what you're wearing today?
Yes, today I'm wearing a Omega Globemaster in Setnar Gold.
Mm.
And
Very nice.
it's Omega's own rose gold alloy with a nice strap and a gold folding buckle. And it's a watch that's dear to me. I got it in 2017, and beautiful watch. It reminds me of the old Omega Constellation Pipepan watches with the Pipepan dial. And I wear it a lot. It's a nice dress watch, and especially during these holidays, I think it's a suitable watch for that.
Beautiful. Very nice. Thank you for sharing. So, John, go on. Surprises. Are you wearing an FXD? Are you wearing something?
No, the FXD is still having a rest. No, I've got my Omega Seamaster SMP 300 from
very nice
2006. And it's got a strap which is very similar to the new Seamaster, the 60th anniversary Bond one that's out. So all good. Love that watch. Yes.
Excellent. And Palm, looking very suave this evening. What have you gone?
Looking dapper, but I've got the boring watch on again. But the one
really?
once I put on this Rolex Explorer 39mm 214270, I can't take it off. It just stays on the wrist for weeks. So it's still here after about 2 weeks.
All right. So that leaves me to a relatively new piece, as in I've only owned this for a day, I think.
No way.
This
That's
is
long for you, Andy.
a Rolex.
A day?
So let me bring it up. This is the 4017 Cellini, or better known as the King Midas.
Oh, wow.
There we go.
Beautiful.
With a nice little mirror dial. Yeah, so super happy with it.
Very nice.
Beautiful. That's so how long are you keeping this one for?
Oh, sometime, I think. Sometime.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So what we're going to do first, RJ, is we're going to have a quick Q&A with you, and just for our viewers as well. And then after our Q&A, we'll go through some pieces in your collection. So recently, Fratello collabed with Oris to create an Oris 65 Diver, which is a very special watch to Oris as a brand. It's probably it's coming to like more, I'd say, one of the most iconic pieces in their catalog historically and even today.
Yep.
What inspired that collaboration with Fratello, and who should I say? And then also, are there any other collaborations in the pipeline, or any you'd like to do in the future?
Let me start by the Oris. We did an Oris collaboration in 2020. That was the Big Crown pointer date in bronze with the oxblood dial and the gilt printing. And that was quite a success. It was not a watch that sold out immediately like you sometimes hear, or that we had with the Nomos, for example, but it went out quite nicely and all sold. And then we thought, okay, Oris is a nice brand to work with, super nice people, and they have a lot of heritage. And we gave it quite some thought. So it took quite a while for us to come up with something. And then meanwhile, one of our editors, Thomas Rosputinsky, he found an Oris Star. It's a diver's watch from 1968. It's based on the one from 65, basically, but it's a later iteration. And it was the first time that Oris came with star on the dial. And that is a very significant word for Oris, because it was the first time that they were regarded and perceived as a proper Swiss watch brand. Because before they had these pin lever escapements and chromed cases and so on, and it was a bit meh. And with the Star, they started to use stainless steel cases, and they came with a Swiss lever escapement for their movement. So there was a very important and significant moment in time for Oris. So we saw that watch, and we didn't give it much thought until the brand manager for Oris in the Netherlands and Belgium, he came to our office and he talked about that watch. And he said, I have that watch as well in my own collection, and let me show it to you. So next time he brought it, and we thought, man, that's such a nice looking watch. We should do something with this specific Oris Diver 65 model. And I think Oris did a lot of different Diver 65 watches, so it was also a bit tricky to do not something that already had been done. But I think with this one, we came with the Oris Star one as a starting point. So it has a glossy dial, which as a watch purist, you perhaps might prefer like a matte dial for a tool watch or a diver's watch. But in this case, the original was also glossy. And we wanted to have the original typography on the dial. And the bezel is a bit different. Instead of indexes, it has dots all around. And it has a trapezium date window at 3, while the normal Oris Diver 65 models has a date on 6 o'clock in the 40mm case. So we did these changes to the watch that really made it close to that original 68 model. And I think we did a very good job. Printed. The dial is all printed to our marker, so no applied markers or rounds or I don't know what. And also important, and I think it's a very small detail, but it makes a lot of difference for me, is in the hour hand of the Diver 65, there's a little split at the end.
Okay.
And the original didn't have that, so we also had the split removed. So we had all these requirements, basically. So we went with that to Oris HQ in Switzerland, and we sat down with Mr. Herzog, for a long time the CEO of Oris and today chairman. And he was super enthusiastic, and he basically said yes to everything we wanted. So that was really good. And then we went forward, and then it's always a bit exciting what will come, because then they start to draw something, and you get like these renders basically. And then it's always the question, how would it look in the flash? But it was like a spot on. First time, it was exactly how we envisioned it. And I think it's a super cool watch. I bought one myself. I don't buy all the limited editions we do. I don't buy everything. It's not all for me. But this Oris, I really like it. And I secured number 13, which is my lucky number. And
wow.
So, beautiful watch. And I put it on a bracelet. That's something we could not deliver the watch on, but you can buy it separately from Oris in Oris boutiques. And I think it looks really cool. So I'm very happy with the result, and it's selling nicely. We're not sold out yet, but it's just it's a cool watch.
Excellent. Just a quick question as well on Oris as a brand. Is that something you've invested in before in your collection, or is this a whole new experience for you?
No, my first Oris was actually the Big Crown pointed date in bronze.
Okay.
I started, when I started collecting, I started in the late 90s, and I started with Omega. And back then, the Omega watches had today's Oris prices. So that set me a bit on a sidetrack, basically. But I think Oris is a lot of bang for the buck. I think they make really nice products in that range. And I think the Diver 65 is a beautiful model, but also their Pro Pilot X. I think they're very cool watches, and it's a cool brand. And also they do some meaningful stuff. We did some events with them, also these beach cleanups with them. So rather than doing some greenwashing that you see a lot happening, they actually do something and invite customers, media, and so on to help them create awareness for a better world, basically. So I think it's a cool brand.
Okay, thank you.
Your other question was if there's anything else in the pipeline, right?
Oh, yes. Sorry, anything in the pipeline, or you'd like to have?
Yes. There's a lot in the pipeline. We don't want to become a media title where we have a new watch every week. So we want to do when we have something cool or something nice. But we have enough in the pipeline. I can't say it yet, because sometimes and you have to have something in the pipeline, because these projects, it's not something that we came up last month, for example, this Oris. It takes quite some time. Sometimes it takes up to a year and a half, for example, to do these things. And during COVID, it was especially difficult because of the suppliers. Suppliers could not supply spare parts in time. So there was a big issue. And so we had a bit of a drawback there earlier this year. and that's also why we came with some collabs in the second half of this year, and quite a few right after each other. That had to do with the fact that some of them were planned earlier on, but the brands didn't have supplies basically. But we have collabs for next year as well in the books. So
you can't reveal anything, obviously. Wait, what's the space?
Different brands and different price categories. I think we have some really cool stuff for like purists and collectors, and I think we have some other brands as well that are just fun. So you'll
awesome.
see.
Okay.
You'll see.
Yeah,
Exciting.
look forward to that.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, I'd like to ask you your views on the MoonSwatch, because Hodinky have recently voted the MoonSwatch as their 2022 Watch of the Year. I'd like to think what your views are on why it is still so popular, and does it deserve to be?
I think even half an hour ago, I got a message from someone that I don't know asking me, "Is there stock where you are in this watch boutique?" So I think it's still real.
Wow.
Yesterday I was in Switzerland and I was in Biel, where Omega and Swatch are, and I was in the Zurich airport in the evening, and there's a Swatch boutique, and I bought a Swatch for my daughter, and I asked about the MoonSwatch, and he said, "Yeah, it's still very real. It's every day we get people in asking for the watch, and I think in some places there are still queues for the MoonSwatch, especially when they get deliveries and so on."
Yes.
I have to say, I have the MoonSwatches that I want. I have them, so I am not that much on top of it anymore. But it's I think it's real. And also in our own overviews on Fratello, it came. We asked every editor to come up with his favorite watches of this year. I think the MoonSwatch was mentioned several times. To make it the watch of the year, I don't know. But what they definitely did is they had to watch with the most exposure or the biggest bang basically this year. And what I found interesting, because you see a lot of discussion that the MoonSwatch did well for Omega by selling more Moon watches in the end.
Yes.
So I think even Hayek from Swatch and at Omega, they said, or the sales of the Moon watch, they increased, I don't know, double-digit number. But what I think is that the MoonSwatch has put Swatch back on the map. Because in the past, and with pain in my heart, because I really like Swatch, because I grew up with these plastic watches, you didn't see Swatch anymore on the street, in the flash, basically. And I was a few months ago, I was in Paris for an event with Grand Seiko, and we were walking in the evening in Paris, in the city center. And I saw people walking around in the flash, in the wild, wearing MoonSwatches. So I think that the brand is talked about again, and that was a long time ago. And I feel it's well deserved for Swatch. I think they made a big change for the watch industry in general in the 80s and also in the 90s when I grew up as a kid. I think there were a lot of Swatches. So I feel it's well deserved, and I want them to be back because it's a cool brand. They have cool ideas, and I'm looking forward to the next big thing from them. I don't know how long they can do MoonSwatches, or if they want to do collabs with other brands in bioceramic, could also be possible. I don't know, but I think this has been very successful, especially for Swatch.
Yeah, because me and Palm were in London a couple of weeks ago, and we went to. I wanted to get one. I still haven't got one yet. And there was just had a delivery, and we got in the queue. It was quite a big queue. I know, thank you. We got in the queue, and we were second to the front, and they just sold out.
Yeah,
they had two numbers. They had two colours in. I thought, well, I'll settle for the yellow. And then we got to they all sold out. They came out and said, sorry, they've all gone. So it's very real still. Yeah, amazing.
It's very real, and we all have them in the office here. I don't have it with me today, but it's just a nice watch. It's a fun piece, and I think you see some complaints, right? That people say, "Oh, but the quality is not there, and it's expensive for 250 euros," or I don't know how much it is in pounds. But I think I don't have any issues with the quality, and I think if there's something wrong, you should go back to the boutique and get a new one. It's easy as that. But people like to complain and put on the camera, put it on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and bitch about it, get views. It's a bit clickbaity, I would say. But I think for what you get for the money, I think it's a fun watch. And perhaps you can also get a Seiko for the money, or a Citizen, I don't know the reference, the 150 or something. but that's a different watch. This is a fun piece to wear. It's a bit of a statement thingy. It's a bit more fashionable. It's just a different product. And I think it's a cool watch for a cool price. And I've seen the manufacture. I've been to the different production facilities in Switzerland. We did a report on Fratello about it with an interview with Hayek. And when I saw that, and when I saw how many people like manually check the watches, if the hands are straight, if the lacquer is properly on the hands, if the luminous material has been applied properly, if the dials are good, if the printing is good. If I see all these manual interventions, man, how can you make that for 250?
Yeah, I agree totally.
So
Yeah,
I can also imagine that they only sell it in boutiques and not through like resellers of Swatch. So you can only buy them at certain Swatch boutiques. Because normally, this is not a big secret, but the retail margin is between 40 and 50% on watches, on luxury watches. So it might be different on Swatch, I don't know. But your margin is gone, basically, if you start to push them through resellers.
Got you. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
One point of criticism, because it's not all sunshine, it's... I think the idea is good. The concept is good. It created a big buzz. But I think the logistics is something else. The fact that you have to stand in line for hours and then the watch is not there is annoying, especially when it happens more than once. But also in places where there's no Swatch boutique and you have to drive for 6 hours or perhaps even longer, you don't want to do that with the risk that there is no Swatch. So I feel they could have done something different there. They did it with the Fiat, the Cinquecento cars that drive around all around the world with MoonSwatches in the trunk. But then still, I don't think you have like full coverage. So it's nice to create a buzz, and it's also not bad to send people out, that they can go out and shop and have to do something for it. It's also a nice idea, rather than just click and put it in your shopping cart. But I think there they could perhaps have done a little bit different, also online. Not that you can always buy it online, but then do a drop on every Monday, for example, and just try your luck a few times. I think that's easier than driving 6 hours for nothing.
Yeah, agreed. Brilliant. Thank you.
So a flip side question on my side, in the industry at least. So H.Moser with the Genesis NFT watch. First point on that watch, how crazy like the construction of that watch is. The other part of the question, our observation is, does blockchain belong in the world of luxury watches? And from what I've seen, what Moser have done, it's not just, okay, it's a slight novelty of being an NFT on the dial, but also your insurance is linked through that barcode to the, to the blockchain as well. All the purchase information as well, which is secure. So what's your feelings just in general? First on how crazy Moser are lately. I believe they're a brand that are really imaginative and being really creative with case design, love it or hate it.
Yep.
And then the second part is, how do you feel just about the crypto/blockchain technology in the world of luxury watches?
Well, I sold all my Bitcoin with a loss. There's my answer. No, I think what Moser does is nice. I think what they already did a few years ago they had the Apple Watch kind of thing. They had the cheese watch, if I'm not mistaken. They had a watch that was like a put together of all the hype watches. So I think they have this angle with a sense of humor, or Swiss humor, I might say. It's not always my sense of humor, but I think I get it. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek stuff that they do. With the NFT, I don't know. I see NFT as a very useful tool that can be very useful for the watch industry, especially when it comes to having service history of watches, and especially with vintage watches, that you make sure that the watch is in a certain condition and have that stored in an NFT or in the blockchain. And then when you, if there's a transaction to a new owner, that he can see, hey, what was the status of the watch or the condition of the watch when my predecessor had it, and so on. So you can, then it becomes a bit more tough to have a Franken watch in the end, I feel, because you can do these checks up front. But still, there's the NFT and there's the physical product. There's no hard link. It's all soft link, right? It's it's a number that corresponds, or it's a picture that corresponds. There's no hard kind of thing, other than if you put a little chip inside the watch. But that's not something you want in a vintage watch, for example.
No.
I think with the NFT watch, I think it's interesting, but I don't know enough about NFTs and what you want to do with this, and metaverse. And I see all these initiatives. I don't care about the metaverse. I just want to have a watch on my wrist and wear it and enjoy it. And I think if you go into that whole metaverse kind of thing and NFTs, and for me, it's also something to show off to others. Look what I have, or what I don't have physically, but what I have in my metaverse. I can't. It's perhaps I'm too old for that. I don't know, but it's not for me.
Yeah. Cool.
But I respect them also for what they are and what they do, and I think their Streamliner is like an awesome piece. Their Venta black watch, man, amazing. But these things for me is a bit of a sidetrack from what they are good at and what they do. It's interesting, but I'm not that much interested in it. I'm rather interested in like proper mechanical watches.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. I think it's exciting what the blockchain can do, as you said, with making sure it's not a Frankenstein watch. I think that element is great, but it doesn't need to be incorporated on the physical watch itself.
Yeah, or for watches that are these stolen watch registers and so on. Perhaps NFT can do something there that you only, at some point, that you only want to buy a watch if you get an NFT or blockchain thing with it, so that you're sure that it's not stolen, comes from the previous owner. That's history. Because that's still a big issue. But yeah, let's see. I don't have a crystal ball, so for me it's very tough to. But for me, the whole combination of a luxury industry with a luxury watch that should put you in a slower pace than your daily stuff. Man, I'm behind my computer all day if I'm not traveling. And then I also have to deal with NFTs and stuff for my watches that I just want to enjoy. So for me, it's a bit too much.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And leading to my second question, as it's quite a futuristic watch, looking forward to the future, we have Watches and Wonders, right? It feels quite far away, but it's only March, and that will soon come around.
Yep.
What are you most excited to see there? What would you most like to see a brand bringing back, maybe at the Watch and Wonders show? What are which brands are you most excited about there for the next year?
I think, of course, always Rolex and Tudor. They are just big brands. Everyone is interested in them. I think especially Tudor, is on a nice track when doing things. I think the Pelagos, the FXD is a good example, but also their Black Bay Pro. I think they were good releases. With Rolex is always interesting because everyone looks at the brand. So let's see what they do. I'm also interested to see what Patek is doing. Because they came with a new white gold Nautilus. I can imagine that they will have some more variations on that, not in steel, but in precious metals. But for me, also the more affordable, and that's relative, of course, but let's say everything under 5K, what will happen there? And of course, Tudor is there, but let's see what else is there. And what I really would love to see is a new IWC engineer. Okay. And then with the engineer that Genta designed in, 76, the SL 1832. I really hope that watch will make a comeback. And I think they're a little bit late with that, if they do, because I think Vacheron really was already late, but they still had some good traction. I would love to see something more daring from Piaget. They have their Polo and they have their Altiplano concept watches that are thinner than a sheet of paper. But I would really love to bring a proper Piaget Polo back, like a proper one with the engraved lines in there, rather than a watch that looks a bit like other watches and not like a proper original Polo. And for the rest, I also want to be surprised a little bit. So let's see. I hope Panerai gets it back on track. If I see a dual watch with a moon face for ladies, I think, what? This is not what I could have ever imagined. So yeah, let's see. I'm psyched for Watches and Wonders, also for Omega Days, which is often a little bit before, so they don't take part in Watches and Wonders. Breitling will have some new stuff. AP will have new releases end of January. So let's see what they will come up with.
Exciting times, yeah.
Excellent. RJ, I'd like to ask you, what has been your biggest highlight achievement in Fratello in these past 12 months? What's been your biggest highlight?
I think our growth with the website. So we grew tremendously with Fratello, over 100% year over year. So that was really nice. I'm very happy if I look at the collaborations that we did. I'm very happy with the Nomos, with the second Nomos we did this year, and also with the Oris that we did. I think it's really a marvelous watch. But what I'm most proud of is the engagement on the website. Is that we don't like to publish from, and sometimes it seems like that because we have been in the industry for quite a long time. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, and I have colleagues that are even longer there. So sometimes it comes across a little bit as snobbish or I don't know what. But I think with our audience, we really try to stay on eye level, and for me that's super important. So we also did our own Fratello events again this year. They were very successful, and it was really cool that people just joined from everywhere. There was one guy who drove all the way from Denmark to the Netherlands, like a 10-hour drive, to join us at this event in The Hague. And at the end of the evening, when it was over, he said, I would do it again. So that was really cool. And so it's not only online where people engage with our content and comment, and we also try to comment back. And not only if they ask a question, but also to just get in touch and to exchange ideas. And sometimes we also, if someone makes a very nice and fair comment under an article, sometimes that leads into a new article, basically, because we really want to have that interaction. And it's very cool to see that during events, like you all saw at the WatchPro Salon in London, it's just very nice to see each other in the flesh and talk about watches, because it's fun to collect watches and to write about watches and to discuss watches on YouTube and podcasts and whatsoever. But I think the nicest thing is to meet with each other and have a look at your watch that's on your wrist and ask, why did you buy that watch, and what's the attraction in that for you, and so on, and is there a backstory to the watch and why you bought it? These personal stories, I think that makes it great. So yes, I'm very happy that we focused a little bit more on those things rather than only do watch reviews.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Excellent.
So RJ, my final and actually to close, rounding up the questions in our Q&A. Mm-hmm. All roads, whether you love it or hate it, always lead back to Rolex. And a question I'd love to ask someone of your esteemed position in the watch world as well is, what do you think of their new certified pre-owned service? Do you hold a bit of suspicion around it, or do you think it's a good thing, or what is your view?
Okay. So there are a few things. We discussed it on Fratello a few times, also in our podcast, but there are a few things. I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding why it's there. Some people think that it is done by Rolex to fight gray market, which it is not, because to be a certified pre-owned Rolex, the watch needs to be at least 3 years old. So by definition, that cannot be gray market. Gray market are new watches that are being sold by unauthorized dealers or resellers. So if you go to your supplier, that can be a dealer or whatever, and you buy 20 Rolexes, you keep them all new in box, plastic, yada, 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 and you start to resell them, then you're a gray market dealer. So, and I think you don't fight this phenomenon by putting out Rolex CPO. I think what makes it interesting, and then there's another thing, I think it's a little bit too late, because CPO is being used by so many dealers not connected to watches. If you look at Xoops, for example, in the UK, they also have a certified pre-owned watch, and many dealers use this word or this phrase. So if you then say Rolex CPO, yeah, it's. I think they should have named it a little bit different, because every dealer can say, hey, this is a certified pre-owned watch, certified by ourselves. So that makes it a bit, tricky. Auditing your own work is never good, because then it's always good, right?
Yep, of course.
But I get it, and I think it's interesting. CPO. It's also the misunderstanding that people think they can just have their watches certified. That's not the case. Bücherer, for example, they buy watches from private people or trade-ins or whatever. So they have a bunch of Rolex watches, and when the Rolex that they have in their hands meet the requirements or the pre-requirements, then they can say, okay, this Rolex we will take to Rolex to have it certified, or have it certified by some Rolex technician that is certified to do so on location. So it's not the case that I have this Rolex right here, for example, and I can go to Bücherer, I want to have this one certified. That's not how it works. So Bücherer buys in watches or trades in watches from people, and a few of these watches or several of these watches that will then be certified and then sold again as a Rolex certified pre-owned watch. And what does it mean? It's not being serviced. They look at the functioning. Does it function properly? Is it correct? Is it the correct parts? Yada, yada, yada. And then they will put it up for sale with this little warranty tag, and you get 2 years additional manufacturer warranty. So the watch doesn't even get a service. Probably the watch will be serviced by Bücherer before they send it in for this certification program. And then it gets certified. I think it's a great idea in general. The concept is nice if the markup is not that high. But if I see that on the Bücherer website in their CPO program, I see a Datejust for £9,000, and I see that same Datejust with box and papers on Chrono 24 for £5,000, then it gets a little bit iffy. Man, it's not what I want to spend for this 2 years extra warranty. So I think it all drills down to the price tag. If the difference is acceptable, let's say on a 10K watch, the price difference is £1,000 or euros or whatever unit these days, then you can think, okay, that's acceptable, because for that extra 1,000, I am avoiding any sorts of risk. But if it's twice the price or even 25% up, I am willing to take the risk for that price difference, because if the watch is not okay, I can have it serviced and still have some change in my pockets.
Yeah, I think the price point is what, 30%, or it
depends on the model. With Datejust, I saw, man, there were double prices, and I think if you go more expensive like Day-Dates and Daytonas, then of course the percentage goes down. But on those amounts, a small percentage is still can be a few thousands, I guess. Yeah.
So what I've heard from a couple of people, and this is just speculation and just obviously conspiracy theory, is that Rolex knew this was coming. They'd planned it for years, and they kind of stockpiled. The shortage of production was the reason. This is the reason why there was a shortage of production, was to hold it all back and then be able to sell their own product unsold for a higher price, like say up to 30%. What would you say to that kind of talk?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of rumors, and Rolex is very private and closed like an oyster. So I think it's all rumors and guesses, and that's not worth much to me. What I did notice is that production went down a little bit. It's also what they confirmed in a meeting we had. But I feel it's also the case that at some point they were shipping more to China, that China became a more important destination for them, because in China, Omega, Longines, those are the brands to have. Those are the luxury brands or the status brands. And Rolex is number one in Hong Kong, but not in mainland China. So it might be the case that they shipped some more watches to there and less to here. But what I now see, and we actually have some pictures from one of our friends in Switzerland, that they are building and finishing up new production facilities in Switzerland to increase the production. When I asked Rolex about production and if they didn't want to increase it, they told me, frankly, well, we can build a new manufacturer. That's not a problem. The problem is mainly getting enough human resources, so people to work in those manufacturers. That will take quite some time to source them or to find them. And then the question is, of course, the demand is super high, but does the demand come from flippers, or does the demand come from people that just want to have one good watch? If it's the latter, they're happy to open a second factory or third factory or whatever. If it's the first and you start to overproduce, you will overflow the market, and that's bad, because then you will see the watches will be dumped and prices will go down. It's bad for it's reputational damage basically for your brand. So I think they're super. Rolex is one of the brands that is so careful about their brand image that they will not mess this up. So they're super careful in everything they do. There's a lot of thought in it, in their communication, but also in their products, and I think in their strategy. So nothing is a surprise. Nothing comes as a surprise to them. So of course they had this in the books for a long time, because this is also an operation you can't set up in a few months' time. I think that's not a right assumption. But no, I don't believe that they hold back production to do CPO. That's conspiracy thoughts.
Okay. That's good to hear your view on that. Thank you so much for that, RJ.
But there's a lot of aluminum hats in the watch industry, I have to say.
Yeah, tin foil hats. Yeah, exactly.
Foil hats. Sorry, tin foil hats. Yes.
Yes.
So I think that concludes our Q&A.
Thank you so much for giving up your time. Really honoured as a show to have you, as I said, on the show, twice in like less than 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed our previous conversation in London. I think this is super nice, and I like it when it's really about watches. I truly enjoyed it. I also could ask you a lot of questions about your watches and why you bought it. So perhaps I should come on another time where I ask you these questions.
We come on Fratello. We come on Fratello channel.
We come to The Hague and we do a nice video.
Okay, yeah. Be careful what you say there. We might turn up.
We'll take you up on
Excellent.
that. Thank you. Excellent. Well, thank you all for watching. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed this very, very special show. We will see you again soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
See you very soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.